Hello fellow modelers, Bruce here. At some point when you're building a structure, you get to have to glue walls together and deal with some trim maybe at that corner. And in this little how-to video we're going to look at 3 distinct ways that I do that, whether it be a scratch build or a kit build. And yeah, follow along. One of the 3 ways that I address corners on structures that I'm building, whether it comes in a kit or whether I'm scratch building, is with the use of these Z-shaped corner posts like you've seen me use with Campbell's kits. And you can buy that raw stock from Micromark, and you can buy it from Northeastern Scale Lumber. And here's a 24-inch piece of corner post that it comes from Northeastern. It's 24 inches long, and it's what they call their 1/8 corner post. And the way you handle that is to simply put some glue sparingly down in the groove. You don't want it oozing out all over the place. And if you have walls that have peaked roofs involved, you should glue these onto the peaked roof walls rather than the side walls, because you want to let them extend a little bit and then trim it off once it's dry. So you put it on. I'm just going to let this sit on this one for a minute. Wipe out the excess glue with a toothpick. Always clean up your joints before they dry. Okay, so there's one corner post. Now, not only is this going to give you another gluing surface for the side wall, but it also gives you your corner trim. So you want these painted ahead of time. So I'm going to put the other side on and let that dry, and then trim off the excess to the same angle as the roof. And again, clean up anything that has oozed out. Yeah, that's good. We'll just let that dry now. And then I'll come in with a razor blade and trim those top pieces off. So again, one of the 3 ways that I address corners on my models. Next up, I'll show you a second way. Talk to you then. Okay, continuing on with the discussion of the Z-corner pieces. They're all glued on now. You can see on this wall there's 1, 2, 3 pieces. On the peaked wall, one on each side extending, and those have to be trimmed off. That's the next step. And one in here for this particular building that I have. So these 1, 2, 3, 4 are the outside corners, and the rest in here is like an alcove that this one and this one are like for alcoves. Okay, this one and that one. Alrighty, so I'm going to trim those off. You can do it with a razor saw. My preference is to use a single edge razor blade in a holder, and that's what I'm going to do now. Alrighty, talk to you. A second way that I do corners on either a scratch build or a kit build is to take square stock that's either the same thickness as the wall or slightly oversized, and glue those square pieces directly to the sides of one of the walls. And typically you want to do that to any wall that has a peaked roof rather than the walls that, you know, just have a straight roof. Because once they're on, you want to come back with a razor blade and lay it right along the slant roof and trim that off to the right angle, and there you go. Can always be trimmed up a little bit with a sanding stick. Now you have the trim on in this case the end walls, and then when you go to glue one of the side walls on, you glue it right to that trim board on the outside edge. So I'm going to come back now and glue that to the trim board, not to the original wall itself. And I'll probably, once that's on and set a little bit, come back with a piece of bracing, square piece of scrap wood, and reinforce that corner. I'll show you what I mean with that in a little while. But this is the second way. Instead of the Z-strips, you just use square stock. Again, this is a 1/16 inch scribe siding, and that's a 1/16 by a 1/16 square piece of trim, painted in this case a contrasting color. I also framed out this freight door with that same trim wood. And I'm about to now glue these pieces onto the edges of this wall in these three positions. One here, and one here. When that's dry, I'll trim them off the way I did here, and then I'll be ready to glue the walls together. All right, talk to you again soon. Alrighty, let's see what's what here. I've glued two of the walls together, and as I told you, the plan was the corner post, which is painted a contrasting trim color, is the same thickness as the wall, and that's 1/16 of an inch. And therefore you glue one wall to the other using the corner post as the gluing stick, and you want that to be flush on the outside of the wall on both sides, and it gives you a good look. And there we go. So earlier in the video I said that you use the same dimension corner post as the thickness of the wall, or a little bit oversized. Now I want to explain that a little bit more. So this is a 1/16 of an inch, and if I went up one size, it would be to, let's see if you can see this, from a 1/16, the next one up would be 5/64. So, you know, a 1/16 of an inch is about, 5.4 inches in HO scale, and 5/64 is about 6.8. And if you went up one size, and again painted the contrasting color for the trim, now instead of gluing things flush to the corner post flush to the outside of the wall, you glue it flush to the inside, the back side of the wall, which will let that corner post stand proud a little bit on both sides, and it's going to look like a trim board nailed over the corner of the house, over the siding. And that also gives you a good look. You just have to remember that when you glue the second wall to it, you glue the wall flush to the inside edge of that trim board, leaving, again, the board protruding out a little bit past. And I do that often, and it gives a good look. It's a little bit different look than here, but it looks natural. So I'm going to continue on, but first I'm going to just, even though this is a relatively small wall, I'm going to glue a reinforcing corner post on the inside. Again, I'm going to glue these with the doors open, the double doors on here. So if somebody goes down and peeks inside, I want the trim board or the corner post that I'm gluing inside not to stand out as raw wood. So I took a Prismacolor marker and I'm giving it a cool gray 40% wipe here on two of the edges, because the inside walls are painted gray with the primer from an earlier step. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this now. And then just insert it on the inside, and that'll strengthen that corner. Again, probably not necessary. I tend to maybe overdo the bracing a little bit on my structures. But I've never been sorry I did it. I guess the only way to be sorry is if you underdid the bracing and then had trouble with it. And there we go. So that'll dry now and just be reinforced. And again, in all likelihood, nobody will see in there, but you never know. Sometimes when I'm doing close-up photography, especially if I put a light in here and you're looking at it and inside, and all of a sudden you see a piece of strip wood that's not painted, but that'll disappear in there. I'll glue the next wall on and continue. So there's that second approach to how I do corners. Gluing a corner post on, either the same size as the same dimensions as the wall, same thickness as the wall, or one size up. And what I'll do now is just in a little while show you the third way I do corners and wrap this video up. Talk to you then. Okay, now it's time to look at the third way that I treat corners on structures that I'm building, and in particular how you do corner trim. We've looked at the the Z corners. We've looked at gluing a square piece of trim wood to the corners of the walls, and now we're going to look at the process when you actually glue walls directly together. So in this case, this is a little shed addition to a structure I'm working on. And let's call these the side walls, ones with the slant roofs. Those are the side walls. They are glued directly to the front wall, the back of the front wall, flush, flush. And now we have to deal with corner trim on that. And then what you use is strip wood. Typically I use 2x6s and 2x4s, and I'll show you how I do that when I come back. Talk to you soon. Alright, here we are back with that little shed addition to the building I'm working on. And working on the corner trim, and as I said, normally I use a 6-inch wide, a 2x6 in particular, for the trim boards. But I've glued 2x4s to the sides of the corner, flush with the front wall. So in other words, when this is laying down like this now, that trim board is flush with the front. And I have the 6-inch wide, the 2x6s now, that I will put on the front flush with that trim board, the outside edge of that trim board. So I'll glue these on now flush with this outside. And what that does is this. Looking at the front, you see a 6-inch trim board. And looking at from the side now, what you see is the 4-inch trim board plus a 2-inch wide edge of the 2x6, and therefore it also looks like a 6-inch wide board. So that trick of using 2x4s on one wall and 2x6s on the other allows you to visually see them both as 6-inch wide trim boards. And that's the third and final way that I handle corner trim on either a kit, if it calls for it, or a scratch-built structure. And in this case, the kit manufacturer made no provision for trim on this little shed. And I just thought that I would add the trim boards the way I traditionally do. And although it's not a very large example, I think you get the idea of what I'm talking about with the situation where you are gluing walls directly to each other rather than gluing walls to the Z corner or gluing walls to a square corner post like I did on the bigger part of this structure. So this shed now, once I get it done, will be going over here. I have always allowed these trim boards to extend up above the level of the wall. Then I can come back in with my razor blade and simply get the right angle, cut it off, and then with your sanding stick just come up and sand it flat so it's the right angle on it for the wall. So I'll glue these fronts on now and that'll be it. So yep, the 3 ways that I treat corner trim on my models. Alrighty, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, as always, I would appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. And if you've not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. We're getting into fall here in Michigan. I have another maybe 2 to 3 weeks of picking up leaves outside and doing some last minute fall cleanup in the yard. And after that, be dead center in prime modeling season. So you'll see more how-to and model videos rather than reminiscing from layout visits. So if you don't want to miss any, please subscribe. All right, talk to you again soon.